All right, here's my overall impression of this, and it's based on things that have happened along the way before this impeachment farce even got off the ground. Adam Schiff is a snake working against the best interest of the American public and our Constitution, and has said things leading up to this impeachment inquiry that outright prove it. Lying about evidence that he said he had proving that Trump was colluding with the Russians, which never came to be and was totally debunked by the Mueller investigation. That found beyond public dispute that the Trump campaign or Donald Trump himself had no involvement with the Russians during the 2016 election. So I'm going to play a speech that Adam Schiff just made in the impeachment inquiry right before they took yet another recess, stopping or interrupting along the way, just like Adam Schiff has done, to interject some key points.
Was adamant that President Zelensky had to, quote, clear things up and do it in public. That's what you have confirmed. That is what you also told Ambassador Taylor. So he would deny there was a quid pro quo, but he was adamant that Zelensky had to, quote, clear things up and do it in public. Now,
Stop.
I've said a lot of things about President Trump over the years. I have very strong feelings about President Trump, which are neither here nor there. But I will say this on the president's behalf. I do not believe that the president would allow himself to be led by the nose by Rudy Giuliani or Ambassador Sondland or anybody else. I think the president was the one who decided whether a meeting would happen, whether aid would be lifted, not anyone who worked for him. And so the answer to the question, who was refusing the meeting, was Zelensky, that you believe should take place, and Ambassador Volker believes should take place, and everybody believes should take place. And the question was when? Who was the one standing in the way of that meeting? Who was the one refusing to take that meeting? There's only one answer to that question, and it's Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States. So who was holding up the military assistance? Was it you, Ambassador Sondland? No, it wasn't. Was it Ambassador Volker? No. Was it Ambassador Taylor? No. Was it Deputy Secretary Kent? No. Was it Secretary of State Pompeo? No. Who had the decision to release the aid? It was one person, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States.
The person who is in charge of determining foreign policy, who can conduct foreign policy however he sees fit, according to the Constitution.
Now, my colleagues seem to think unless the president says the magic words, I hereby bribe the Ukrainians, that there's no evidence of bribery or other high crimes or misdemeanors. But let's look to the best evidence of what's in the president's head. What's his intent? What's the reason behind the hold on the meeting and on the aid? Let's look at what the president has to say. Let's look at what's undisputed about what the president has to say. And you know how we know what the president has to say? Not because what you have represented or others have represented, but because we have a record of his conversation. And with who? The one who really matters. With the other president, Zelensky. And this is what he says.
The other president, Zelensky, who has said on more than one occasion that there was no pressure from the president and that the Democrats' concerns on the other side are unfounded.
He says, Rudy very much knows what's happening. And he is a very capable guy.
And that's why they changed the rules under this impeachment inquiry, so that the president's lawyers, Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekula couldn't argue on the president's behalf because they are very capable people and they know exactly what's going on.
He says he wants a favor, and he goes into CrowdStrike in 2016. He says, Rudy very much knows what's happening and is a very capable guy. If you could speak to him, that would be great. The former ambassador from the United States, the woman was bad news, and the people she was dealing with in Ukraine were bad news. So I just want to let you know that. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General, that would be great.
And wouldn't that be great to get to the bottom of what potentially could be double dealing under Barack Hussein Obama's very nose? And yet, that's the last thing that the Democrats want.
Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you could look into it, it sounds horrible to me. So what's in the president's mind when he has placed this otherwise inexplicable hold on the aid, when he refuses to take the meeting? What's on his mind? Biden.
Indeed, Biden. Because somebody getting appointed to a board of directors on an energy company in a faraway country who is paid outrageous amounts of money with no experience is downright suspicious.
He makes that abundantly clear. I understand, Ambassador, you said you didn't make the connection between Burisma and Biden. I will let the American people judge the credibility of that answer. But there's no mistaking what Donald Trump's interest was. There's no mistaking about what Donald Trump meant when he had that call with you on an unsecure phone as you're sitting there, an outdoor terrorist in Ukraine. When the president said investigation, he meant Biden.
And not unlike, I can't even remember the asshole's name now, Adam stinking Schiff taking a prank call from a Russian comedian, trying to gather information from a foreign source to gain dirt on a sitting president.
Abundantly clear to the president of Ukraine the day before. The question is not what the president meant. The question is not whether he was responsible for holding up the aid. He was. The question is not whether everybody knew it. Apparently they did. The question is, what are we prepared to do about it? Is there any accountability?
Is there any accountability? That's the question. It's the fact that they're trying to avoid accountability for their own party's actions that drives all of this.
Forced to conclude that this is just now the world that we live in, when a president of the United States can withhold vital military aid from an ally at war with the Russians, an ally fighting our fight too, to defend our country against Russian aggression. Are we prepared to say, in the words of Mick Mulvaney, get over it or get used to it?
And let's not forget, during the Obama administration, when Ukraine asked for assistance, all they got were blankets.
Not prepared to say that. We're not prepared to say that. And I appreciate Ambassador Volker, Ambassador Sondland, I appreciate the fact that you have not opined on whether the president should be impeached or not be impeached, or whether the crime of bribery or the impeachable offense of bribery or other high crimes and misdemeanors has been committed. That is for us to decide in consultation with our constituents and our conscience. That is for us to decide. And much as my colleagues have said otherwise, this is not an easy decision for any of us. And much as my colleagues may say otherwise, this is not something we relish. For over a year, I resisted this whole idea of going down the road to impeachment.
Bullshit. If so, he wouldn't have been out making false statements to the press and leaking from private Security Council meetings to the press information that he deemed could be damaging to the president. If he wasn't on the impeachment train the whole time, those things would have never happened.
But it was made necessary, and not by the whistleblower, but by the actions of the president. I'm continually struck how my colleagues would suggest that because the president got caught, we should ignore the fact that he was conditioning official acts in order to get political favors, in order to get an investigation against his rival.
Which, by the way, is exactly what went on during the Obama administration and the Hillary Clinton campaign to gain dirt and build a phony Russian dossier against Hillary Clinton's political opponent, Donald Trump.
Caught is no defense, not to a violation of the Constitution or to a violation of his oath of office, and it certainly doesn't give us a reason to ignore our own oath of office. We are adjourned.
With that, the entire chamber, or at least wise the press and the other Democrats, erupt into half-assed thundering applause. Representative Schiff, makes a reasonable sounding argument if you're willing to overlook the facts that lead up to all of this. If you take these prior facts into account, none of this makes any sense. The only thing that makes sense is that the Democrats have something to hide, and they're scared of Donald Trump because he's totally capable of exposing it. Through the FISA investigations, the IG report, and several other investigations that hopefully have been going on behind the scenes to blow all of this right out of the water. And it has unfolded, in my estimation, the way that it has, to educate the American public as to what the swamp's really all about and who the players are. And anyone who's been paying attention along the way ought to know that by now. My concern here is that too much time has been allowed for the other side to develop an exit plan. Because when and if YouTube changes its policy and wipes us all out after December 10th, it's going to be extremely hard to get the message out. Because most people aren't going to react to it like I will. When they take down my channel and silence the little voice that I get to have, I will never, ever use their service again. It might make life a little more difficult to gather information or what have you, but that's the way I'm going to do it. And my fear is that the American public won't look at it the same way. And they will do the same old thing, the same old way, on the same old platforms that are just as much a part of the deep state as Adam Shitty Schiff.